In this episode of Pop Culture Weekly, I talk with the one and only David Dastmalchian all about the brand new Apple TV Plus series Murderbot, and Max Talisman and Joey Pollari join to discuss their movie Things Like This. Let's go!
Welcome to Pop Culture Weekly with Kyle McMahon from iHeartRadio. Your pop culture news, views, reviews, and celebrity interviews on all the movies, TV, music, and pop culture you crave weekly. Here's Kyle McMahon.
Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Weekly with Kyle McMahon. I, of course, am Kyle McMahon, and I thank you, as always, for joining me for another episode of Pop Culture Weekly. You know the drill. We've got your all-access pass to the stars and biggest stories and buzziest releases in entertainment, and today's episode is no different. It is stacked with talent. First up, we're going to be joined by Max Talisman and Joey Pollari, the dynamic duo behind the new rom-com, Things Like This. They will be dishing on everything from the making of the film to the importance of authentic queer storytelling and what it was like bringing their on-screen chemistry to life. Max has a very interesting story behind his reason for, writing and directing and starring in this film. I think it's a pretty important story to tell, and I'm glad that he's telling it on Pop Culture Weekly. Then, the one and only David Dastmalchian stops by to talk about his killer new Apple TV Plus series, Murderbot. Yes, it's sci-fi. Yes, it's crazy. And yes, David brings that same unforgettable intensity we've seen in Dune and The Suicide Squad and Oppenheimer, and my favorite film of his, Late Night with the Devil, exclusively from Shudder. But this time, with a sarcastic, emotionally complex robot involved, too. Yeah, it's crazy, but I love it. So let's dive right in. We'll start with the heart and soul behind a brand new romantic comedy that's been already turning heads and winning hearts from the reviews alone. We've got actor, writer, director Max Talisman, who not only stars in the film, but also wrote and directed it. So definitely a triple threat there. And joining him is the incredibly talented Joey Pollari, who you may know from Love, Simon, VOA, Looking for Alaska. Together, they bring a fresh, authentic energy to Things Like This, a film that explores love, connection, and self-discovery in a way that feels both deeply personal and universally relatable. I really, really did enjoy this movie, and I wasn't sure that it was going to be my cup of tea, and it is just universal. It's such a great film. It's charming, it's funny, it's emotional, and most importantly, it's a huge step forward for inclusive storytelling in film. So, please, welcome to Pop Culture Weekly, Max Talisman and Joey Pollari. Thank you, Max and Joey, for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. So, first of all, Max, how did Things Like This come up for you? Writer, director, producer, where did this come from?
It came from the feeling that I wasn't seeing roles that I wanted reflected in the landscape, and also stories that I felt represented myself as part of what I was seeing on screen. And my acting coach, Amelia Campbell, had suggested that I just sit down and I write and see what comes out. And I know that there's a lot of, acting coaches, a lot of professors who give that advice. And I would also say that if that advice is given, give it a shot, because you never know what could happen. Yeah. But that's really where it came from. And it started mostly with writing what I know, which is, at the time, dating in New York, dating as a plus-size gay man. Like, that's really where it started. And it just grew from there. More and more, parts of the story came in. And I grew as a writer. I developed it for years with Buzz Koenig, my producer. And then, 8 years later, here we are.
Wow. And Joey, how did you get involved?
I got a call out of the blue, like something that you just dream of. Yeah, and Max called or sent an email, the euphemism of call. And I just got it thrown to me. It was in the middle of the pandemic. Then the script came and I started reading the script and I hopped on a call with Max and we had a discussion about like what it would actually look like. And once we got on set, it was off to the races. We just had an absolute blast.
Max, for you, you mentioned this, that you didn't see exactly, what you wanted to see representation wise on screen.
Mhm.
What are some of the films that, inspired you, although they might not have been exactly what you were looking for?
Absolutely. I think the films that inspired me most are, straight rom-coms of like the 90s, like movies like You've Got Mail, Notting Hill, When Harry Met Sally, like sort of the quintessential rom-com. And also movies from a little bit later when I was in like high school, like The Proposal, or just movies like that. That sort of, I as a queer kid would have to see myself reflected in these straight stories and find sort of, where how I could relate to them. And so, I felt like what I wanted to create was a queer romance where straight people could relate to it. Just sort of tell a love story that was funny and had a lot of heart to it. And that's where it came from, was this feeling of what I got from those movies.
And did you find as you were writing it, you're obviously being in any, I feel as an artist that whenever you are creating art, there's a real vulnerability a lot of times.
Yeah.
Did you feel that? Especially, not only are you creating it and writing it and producing it and all, but you're in it.
Yeah.
And so, so it's even, I think, more exposing yourself
Sure.
to like, okay, I'm gonna write all this and then I'm gonna have somebody else do it. So I can kind of, I don't want to say hide behind that in a negative, but when you're writing it and then you're also being it, that's even more exposure.
Right,
Did you
right.
find that?
I didn't necessarily, only because
Yeah, I
what
never saw him break a sweat once. That's exactly what you're talking about. You would think that someone would have that level of just fear, but Max is go ahead, sorry.
no, I was going to say, like, as a writer, what's sort of comforting is that, like, I think all of the characters are elements of me, in a way. So they're all sort of like parts of, my brain, personified. So I'm only playing an element of myself. I'm like, I think that, obviously, to be like, if I'm being frank, the character, my Zach, is probably the closest in the film to myself. But that being said, we still have a lot of differences, and so it didn't feel as vulnerable, to be honest. Probably the most vulnerable was the writing of it itself, but, just on set in general, I just felt like, so blessed to get to do this and, like, so just happy to be there. So, yeah, no, there was no sweat. There was no everything had a solution. Everything sort of, had somewhere to go. So it didn't feel like I was ever under a lot of stress. It was always just sort of a great situation to be in, and the vulnerability you're speaking of was, I think, really sort of explored in the first part of it when I was just writing it. And, what's interesting is now that it's being released, maybe that will be something, that'll show artists or if no, 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 no. I think it's, I don't know, it's interesting.
You should be very afraid.
No, I'm all good. I'm all good. I'll call my therapist later, but we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Joey, to that, do you feel a responsibility? I mean, Max is right there. He's on set. You're talking to him in your scenes. Did it ever occur to you that like I am,
A part of him that I'm reflecting back to him.
exactly.
No, I just kind of felt like the only things that were really vulnerable are these moments where like the character is really going through it, really is trying to confront why they're drawn towards each other or away from each other. That's the stuff that's vulnerable. When you have a cast and a crew that's so supportive, eventually, you feel all right. You know what the scariest part was? Is that one of our most dramatic scenes was shot maybe day 2?
It's day 3, you're
Day
absolutely right.
3.
It was absolutely right, and
I remember getting the call sheet and
yeah.
saying, "Oh, okay, I thought I'd have time to work up to this," but it taught me a valuable lesson, which is just you always have to dive in, and
Yeah.
it really helped. Once that scene was over, you just felt like you could breathe this big breath of fresh air. So that was a real it felt like a curse, and it turned into a real blessing.
I was worried about that too. I kept trying to fight the schedule to be like, "Why are we here on the," but
Yes.
locations, independent film, you really don't have a say on where you are when. So it worked out in the end, I think. It did sort of force us into the fire, dive into the deep end type thing.
Yes.
Well, and it came out beautifully. So,
Thank you.
mission accomplished. For you, Joey, when you're doing a role like this, are you able to, or how do you separate or not separate yourself into Zach, your Zach?
Yeah, I think at any time with something like this or things like this, you're it's so much trying to replicate that chemistry and that spark as relatable as possible. So you're not trying to just build this entire character or build all these walls to try and construct something. You're just trying to relate as much as possible. So I'm trying to bring as much of myself as there is and trying to find out where those moments are that I can relate. Like any artist, trying to find your way in. That was the real gift of playing a rom-com. Comedy relies on your instincts. Drama relies on your instincts to a different degree, but it's you have to be in that moment. So that was just a pleasure.
And did you ever pick Max's brain about, I think it's almost like a blessing and a curse, I would think, that Max is there as the writer,
Right.
because you can almost, and director, because you can almost get in, well, literally, you can pick his brain about, well, what did you mean when you said this for me? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was a real that was nice.
Yeah.
That was nice. I mean, Max is right there. There's no and Max doesn't have any sort of ego about, okay, I'm here and I'm doing this or that. There's not this hierarchy where you're trying to talk to someone through something. Max is just always available. So having those times where you do have a question or not, but I mean, honestly, most of the time we just laughed our way through this thing. We did. I would like to, portray some story like I was really going back there and trying to figure out, call his therapist behind his back, something like this. But no, it was just pleasurable. So much fun.
But we would also, there were times where, we would change words on the fly type thing. Like,
Yes.
not precious about the writing, to be honest. Like, if Joey felt like something should sound differently, I would be like, let's go with that. Like, there's no,
That's so
Yeah.
rare. I mean, it was just great collaborative experience.
That's awesome. And Max, I got to ask you, it's so beautifully shot. There are so many gorgeous shots, especially of New York. How did you decide, did you have like a list of things that you wanted to hit shot wise in regards to the city?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I knew that, you have limited time sort of, being able to showcase the city. And I wanted to highlight, what makes New York the sort of the most romantic city, not just to me, but clearly to a lot of filmmakers and people in general. So it was important to me to highlight the places that I felt the most sort of magical, like in this elevated, not elevated, but a lifted place of mystical realism, like just the next level. And so we did sort of have the places we needed to hit and what was important to us. And it was also important to me that we got Stonewall in there for a moment, just to make sure, to recognize that we wouldn't even be able to make this film if not for what happened there years ago. And it was just, important to just make sure that we were highlighting the parts of the city that really, allowed us to make the movie in the end. But yeah, also, you speak to the shots, and that's a lot. My collaboration with Matt Clegg, the DP, and really just my associate director, Michael Matujek, and we just spent, days sort of creating a shot list and going through it. And I knew that for a lot of things, I wouldn't, end up being behind the camera because I was on screen. So we had to make sure that everything was really planned and, looked the way it was supposed to when it was time, and that I could quickly look at a monitor and be like, yeah, that's the shot we planned. Let's go for it.
And that actually brings up a great point, because you are wearing so many hats in that.
Yeah.
Did you find it difficult at all to kind of juggle all these balls, or whatever the saying is? Did I just mess up that saying?
No, that's not what I was laughing at. To be honest, it was just
That's the first.
I think it is. Yeah, no. The truth is that I didn't. I think like in the same way that I think every job, has its stresses and its moments of can I do this? Like the imposter syndrome comes in. But that was all sort of before, to be honest. Once, we're speaking about being on set, like, I was surrounded by such an amazing crew and such a just wonderful cast that, like, once I was there, it was just pure support for everything I was doing. And I never felt like I was out there alone, and I never felt like it was all on my shoulders. So even if, a lot of it was, it didn't matter because I didn't feel that way. I felt completely supported. And I always, I feel even when I was wearing so many hats that I was just part of the crew and part of the cast. So in the end, I felt more like, a team leader more than anything else. And so that really pushed forward, sort of, the mentality to be able to go through it.
Okay, I love that. And Joey, for you, for during the shoot, what was the funniest, because it is, a romantic comedy. What was the funniest for you as an actor, in your shoot, whether on screen or off?
I mean, there's too many moments to count. We have such funny people in this movie. I've got a couple scenes with Taylor Trench, who plays my ex-boyfriend in the movie. He is so incredibly funny. We had great just day players who came on. I mean, that's the fun thing, right? Like, you just meet this person, you jump right into a scene, and you find they have all this wonderful talent or this wonderful
Yeah.
instincts. So that's to me the most fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, every day felt really fun. We felt like did have a lot of day players come in. We had a lot of like people who were these incredible comedians come in for really like hours, and we would get to play around with them and then they would leave. And so it was really special. But I will say that watching you and Taylor was a special joy. Like, they were able to sort of, improv and create these really hilarious bits. And we have a lot of Taylor in the bloopers because it was just sort of like gold.
It's a
Like,
Taylor heavy blooper.
yeah, it's a Taylor heavy.
And they're not really bloopers, they're just outtakes.
They're just outtakes of
being
him playing the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love for him to play some like, crazy Jim Carrey-esque character, so you can have like a liar blooper reel of him because he's just crazy talented.
fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
That's good count.
Liar the musical.
I love that. And finally, what do you hope for people to get from things like this, both of you?
Thanks.
I hope that people get that the message of this film is that love is universal, and the fears that we have, the anxieties that we have about falling in love, everyone goes through those. I hope that the message that we, all want to be loved, and we all feel the need to connect with other people. I think those are the main things that I'm hoping. And I also hope people just have a good time. I hope they laugh. I hope they, leave, wanting to hear more of my jokes, please. So that would be what I say. Yeah.
I love that.
And I have the same feeling. I mean, we have a great message here about that universal love, and that everyone experiences the same things when they go and try and fall in love. But it is just a gas of a movie. It's fun to see in a big theater. It resonates big. The music's loud. It's a gas from start to finish.
And it's a joy to watch. Thank you both so much for pursuing with me.
Nice to
Things like this. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you take care.
Max Talisman and Joey Pollari. Great guys. It's a great film. Things like this really is, an enjoyable, universal film that I think is important for, people that aren't necessarily always represented in film authentically. So we're going to take a quick break and to pay the bills. When we come back, we're talking with David Dastmalchian. Be back in 60. All right. Thanks for hanging with me and supporting our sponsors that help support this show so I can bring great stuff to you. So, all right, let's get right into it. Our next guest from some of the most unforgettable roles in recent film and TV. The Dark Knight, Ant-Man, Suicide Squad, Dune, Oppenheimer, and my favorite, Late Night with the Devil. He's the kind of actor who disappears into every role that he does, and he leaves a lasting impression every single time. Now he's stepping into the world of sci-fi once again, this time as a scientist in this crazy world of Murderbot, which is a new Apple TV Plus series that's based on the beloved books by Martha Wells. It's action-packed, it's smart, it's darkly funny, and full of heart, just like David himself. So let's get ready to dive into rogue robots, existential questions, and some pretty cool storytelling. Please welcome to Pop Culture Weekly the incredibly talented, always fascinating David Dastmalchian. Thank you so much for speaking with me, David. I appreciate it.
What's up, Kyle?
How you doing?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Congratulations on Murderbot, and this will lead into that. But you have been in so many of my favorite projects, from Weird to, Late Night with the Devil is one of my all-time favorite things ever. I love it. So
Dude,
awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Of
Thank you.
course. And then Twin Peaks. I mean, so many of your projects have been some of my absolute favorites. Last Voyage. I mean, anyway, I could go on about your entire career, but is this, and then now Murderbot is so cool. You have obviously the best agent in the world. But like, how are you drawn to these kinds of projects? Like, is that a conscious choice that,
I think
is there
it's more
something that's
subconscious than conscious. I'm energetically drawn to the material, and maybe the material energetically magnetizes me. But since I was a little boy in Kansas, sneaking downstairs to watch the, Cremation Mortem Friday Fright Night, and I would watch all the classic old horror movies, and then I, became completely engrossed in the world of comic books, and I've been collecting comic books since I was 9 years old. I love science fiction. So all of that, being a fan myself and having been someone that's found so much joy in those spaces, now as a professional actor, storyteller, perhaps there is some kind of invisible thread that is drawing me towards all of this. But honestly, I give it up. It's God. It's a miracle. It's incredible. I'm someone who's shouldn't even be sitting here today, but thanks to, the miracle of like mental health, mental wellness, recovery. I'm going to be celebrating 23 years clean and sober in May. And the fact,
Congratulations.
I thank you, I get to tell stories for a living, especially in the genre space, and how that's all taken shape is in many regards just beyond my ability to comprehend. Sometimes I show up to work and I look around myself and I go, how is this even real? A friend of mine once said to me, you're living in nerdvana. And I completely agree. State of nerdvana.
That's a perfect way to put it, because, as your career, I've obviously myself been a lifelong pop culture fan. And, 2008 or whatever, as your career really started picking up in film and TV and all. And I'm like, okay, David. And then it's the next cool project that I'm looking for. And I'm like, oh, he's in this too. And then the next cool project that I'm excited about, I'm like, wow, he's like in all these cool things, that I'm drawn to as a genre nerd,
I'm so lucky. And one of the things I'm so grateful for is my history and my background in the stage and working in the theater, and this deep love of text and bringing characters to life. Because whether I'm, trying to manifest, Frank Herbert's Pieter de Vries in Denis Villeneuve's Dune film adaptation, or bringing James Gunn's Polka Dot Man to life in The Suicide Squad, or portraying Garathan, a character from the mind of Martha Wells, now in this show from Paul and Chris Weitz, I will approach these opportunities the same way that I would if I was getting to manifest Iago in Othello, if I was getting to play Tom Wingfield in The Glass Menagerie. I don't think there's any difference in the approach, no matter the genre. And I take it just as seriously. It's incredibly silly when you look at it from the outside. And here I am battling giant space worms, and I'm shooting polka dots out of my fingers. And to many people, you could go, wow, that's ridiculous. Sure, maybe it is, but I love it.
And we love watching it. And, for something like Murderbot, as you are, getting this script, and looking at reading it over and stuff, do you kind of nerd out too, like as I do watching it?
I do. As soon as I was given the opportunity to get to be Garathan in Murderbot, and I started really getting into and diving into the scripts and the stories and the characters and the worlds that we were going to be bringing to life, I get 12 again. I get that feeling, that tingly feeling that I get, the same feeling I get when because I write a lot of comic books. I'm writing for many years a series called Count Crowley for Dark Horse. I created and write Knights vs. Samurai at Image. I just did a run of Creature Commandos at DC. I've got a new Venom story in Marvel, and many more to come. Whenever I get, an email with layouts or, inks or pencils from my artist, I jump up in my seat, and when I get a script with a character like Garathan that I get to play, I jump up out of my seat and I feel 12, man. When I'm on set and playing, I feel 12, and that's a beautiful way to feel. Not the 12 that was terrified or insecure or afraid or self-loathing, the 12 that would walk into Clint's Comics in Kansas City and, open the latest issue of, Detective Comics or West Coast Avengers or X-Men or whatever I was reading at the time and get so nerdily excited and transported to another world. I live for it. It's a dream.
It's awesome to watch. And then, and like you said, then you go on set and you are literally in the Murderbot diaries. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. And that world that Martha imagined is so, full, and it's so powerful. So I'm excited for audiences to get to see this world, because it's like, yeah, it's science fiction. Yeah, it's comedy. Yeah, it's all these things that you think what that's supposed to look and move and feel like. And I feel so blessed and grateful that here on this show and Apple's supported and give us an opportunity to create something that I genuinely feel like is so outside of the box of what people are used to. And it's going to be utterly surprising, in my humble opinion, I hope, for people who tune in. I don't know if you've gotten to watch episodes yet, but to me, I've been given a chance now to sit down with them, and I'm so proud. And I feel like this experience pushed me in the best way possible and made me a much better actor than I've ever gotten to be before. And I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, and I'm grateful to watch it. I can't wait for everybody to see it. And I love that you can continue to elevate, I say our genre as if this collective ownership.
That's what is special about it, though, man. It is ours. It is not, it's the least exclusionary of the storytelling. Sometimes things can feel inaccessible, even though they shouldn't. You want to see Shakespeare, you want to go to the opera, you want to see, a hardcore drama. Sometimes those can feel exclusionary even. And with genre work in the science fiction, in the nerd space, everyone is welcome. All of us belong, and it is ours. It's ours to share and celebrate. And that's why a story like this is so important too, because look at the characters. There's so many weirdos and people outside of norms. And we're living in a time that can be dangerous for people who live outside of the norms, who aren't fitting into the binary structure the way that people are told they're supposed to look, present themselves, behave. We're all safe. We all belong. So thank you for saying our. It is our genre. And I'm just grateful and honored that I get the chance to come in and sometimes, contribute to it.
Thank you, David. I can't wait for everybody to see Murderbot. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much.
Have a good day. David Dastmalchian. Love him. Love Murderbot. Love Late Night with the Devil. One of my favorite movies ever. Love The Dark Knight. Love Ant-Man. Love Oppenheimer. He's just such a great actor. He, I would really say he's like a character actor. He really just brings a whole thing to everything he does, and that's why I find him so enjoyable. So, all right, that's our show for this episode. The next episode is our annual National Memorial Day concert special. I'll be live in Washington, D.C. at the West Lawn of the U.S. Capitol, talking with the performers, including Gary Sinise and the gospel legend Yolanda Adams, all about celebrating and remembering what Memorial Day is all about. National Memorial Day concert will air live on PBS on Sunday, May 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern, with an encore following at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. So, all right, I will see you next time. I love you. We out.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Weekly. Hear all the latest at popcultureweekly.com.
Murderbot, Murderbot, I love to murder. Murderbot, Murderbot, I love to kill.